They mocked the wrong woman. She didn't reach for a weapon. She didn't raise her voice. She just smiled, and that smile was the most terrifying thing those men had ever seen. The restaurant was warm and golden that Friday evening, the kind of place where families celebrated anniversaries and old friends caught up over wine. Hazel Marvel sat across from her grandfather, Walter, a 74-year-old man with silver hair, kind eyes, and hands that had once built an entire house from scratch. She loved these dinners. Once a month, just the two of them. No phones, no distractions, no war. Just peace. Hazel needed peace more than most people understood. She was 38 years old, with dark hair pulled back neatly, sharp green eyes that missed absolutely nothing, and a calm about her that most people mistook for shyness. She wore a simple navy blazer, pearl earrings that had belonged to her grandmother, and a quiet confidence that filled every room she entered without demanding a single moment of attention. She had spent 15 years in special forces, classified operations, hostile territories, missions that didn't exist in any government file. She had trained soldiers twice her size, survived situations that would break most human beings, and come home carrying scars that no one could see. She had walked away from all of it 2 years ago, quietly, without ceremony, and rebuilt her life in the same small town where her grandfather still tended his garden every morning. Nobody here knew who she really was. She preferred it that way. "You look tired, sweetheart," Walter said, studying her over his reading glasses as he perused the menu. Hazel smiled softly. "I'm fine, Grandpa. Order the steak. You always order the steak." "I was thinking about the salmon tonight." "You say that every time." He chuckled, a warm rumbling sound that reminded her of fireplaces and Christmas mornings. "You know me too well." Occupational hazard. They ordered, they talked. Walter told her about his garden, about the roses that were finally blooming after 2 difficult seasons, about the neighbor's cat that kept digging up his tulips. Hazel listened with genuine delight, laughing at all the right moments, letting the warmth of the evening wash over her like a long exhale. This was the life she had chosen. This was what she had fought for. She didn't notice the group of men at first. There were 4 of them, seated 2 tables away, loud in the way that only drunk, entitled men can be loud, like the entire world was their personal audience. They were somewhere in their early 30s, dressed in expensive casual wear, the kind of men who had never heard the word no from anyone who mattered to them. She clocked them within 30 seconds of their voices rising. Old habit, assessed the threat level, logged it away, returned her attention to her grandfather. Low risk, she had decided. She was wrong. It started with laughter. One of them, broad shoulders, a red polo shirt, the ringleader energy of someone who had peaked in high school, nudged his friend and nodded toward Hazel and Walter's table. She caught it in her peripheral vision, felt the shift in the room's energy the way she had once felt the shift in desert air before an ambush. She said nothing. Walter was in the middle of a story about the tulips. Then the comment came, loud enough to be deliberate, quiet enough to pretend it wasn't directed at them. "What's a girl like that doing with a grandpa? You think she knows what she signed up for?" Laughter, ugly, braying laughter. Walter stopped mid-sentence. His face changed, not with anger, but with something worse, embarrassment, the particular humiliation of an old man being mocked in front of the granddaughter he adored. Hazel felt something cold move through her chest. Not anger, not yet. Something more precise than anger. She placed her hand gently over Walter's. "Ignore them," she said quietly. "Tell me about the tulips." "Hazel, the tulips, Grandpa." He hesitated, then continued, his voice a little less steady than before. She kept her eyes on him, warm, present, but every other sense was locked onto that table with the precision of a targeting system. Red Polo said something else. She didn't catch all of it, something about her being a gold digger, something about Walter being a sugar daddy. Maury laughter. A nearby couple shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A waiter glanced over and looked away, clearly debating whether intervention was worth the trouble. Hazel took a slow breath. She had talked down armed militants in 3 different languages. She had negotiated hostage releases in countries most people couldn't find on a map. She was not going to let 4 drunk men ruin her grandfather's dinner. She signaled the waiter. Could you let your manager know that the table near the window is creating a hostile environment for other guests? She said pleasantly. Thank you. The waiter nodded, relieved to have a directive, and disappeared. Red Polo caught the exchange, made eye contact with Hazel for the first time. She looked back at him steadily. Not with anger, not with fear, just looked at him the way she used to look at targets through a scope, calm, clinical, completely without emotion. He didn't like that. Men like him never liked being looked at that way by a woman. He stood up. Hey, he walked toward their table, his friends watching with amused grins. No offense meant, sweetheart, just having a laugh. Hazel said nothing. Walter started to speak. She squeezed his hand gently. I have this. You don't have to be rude about it, Red Polo continued, his tone shifting to something more aggressive when she didn't respond. Just said you were pretty. That's a compliment. That's not what you said, Hazel replied. Her voice was completely level. He blinked. Excuse me. You made a demeaning comment about my grandfather. That's not a compliment. She tilted her head slightly. I'd appreciate it if you went back to your table. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, then irritation, then the particular wounded pride of a man who had expected a very different reaction. Or what, he said. Hazel smiled. Not warmly, not coldly, just smiled the way she had smiled at a warlord in a concrete room in a country she couldn't name in public, right before the situation resolved itself entirely in her favor. He stared at that smile, and for one brief instinctive moment, the kind of animal moment that bypasses all conscious thought, something in his brain told him to step back. He didn't listen to it. That was his first mistake. The manager arrived. Words were exchanged. Red Polo's group was asked to leave. They went loudly, knocking into chairs on their way out, throwing a parting insult over their shoulders that Hazel didn't dignify with a response. She turned back to Walter. Now, she said, tell me about the roses. Dinner ended beautifully. Steak for Walter, salmon for Hazel. Just to be different. A shared slice of chocolate cake that Walter insisted on even though his doctor had opinions about sugar. They stayed until the restaurant grew quiet, talking about the past, about her grandmother who had been gone 6 years now, about the letters she had sent Hazel during deployments that Hazel still kept in a box under her bed. It was perfect. Until they walked out to the parking lot. The night air was cool, the parking lot half empty, lit by amber overhead lights that turned everything slightly golden. Hazel walked beside Walter, her hand lightly at his elbow on the uneven pavement. She heard the footsteps before she saw them. 4 sets, confident, spread out in a loose formation, approaching from the left near the row of SUVs where the shadows pooled deep and thick. Red Polo and his friends hadn't left. They had waited. Of course they had. Hazel felt the familiar settling happen inside her, the thing that had saved her life more times than she could count. Everything slowed down. Her breathing deepened. Her mind cleared like water going still. Every variable registered in an instant. 4 men, varying levels of intoxication, no visible weapons, overconfident body language indicating no formal training, positioning sloppy, no awareness of sight lines or exit routes. She had faced considerably worse. She guided Walter subtly to her right side, putting herself between him and the approaching men. The movement was so smooth he didn't even notice it. Red Polo stopped about 8 feet away, close enough to intimidate, far enough to claim innocence if needed. Leaving so soon, he said. His smile was wide and unpleasant. Hazel stopped walking. She turned to face them fully. Grandpa, she said, her voice perfectly conversational, could you do me a favor and wait by the car? Keys are in my left jacket pocket. Hazel, Walter's voice was tight with alarm. I'll be 2 minutes, she said, turning to give him a quick, genuine smile. I promise. Something in her smile, the absolute absence of fear in it, made Walter marvel, who had known his granddaughter her entire life, go very still. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he took the keys and walked to the car without another word. Hazel turned back to the 4 men. She stood alone in the amber light, hands loose at her sides, utterly relaxed. Okay, Red Polo said, rolling his shoulders. Now it's just us. You want to tell me what that look was about in there? Which look? She asked. Don't play games. "I'm not playing anything," she said pleasantly. "You followed an elderly man and his granddaughter into a parking lot at night. I want you to think about what that says about you. Take your time." One of the other men, shorter, with nervous energy that told her he was the most dangerous of the four because he was the most unpredictable, stepped forward. "She's just trying to stall. She's scared." Hazel looked at him. That same look. He stopped moving. 15 years, she said quietly. The parking lot had gone very still. "Special forces, I've been in rooms with people who make you look like children at a birthday party." She paused. "I'm going to give you a choice because I believe in choices. You can walk to your cars right now, drive home, sleep this off. Tomorrow you'll have a story about the night you almost did something very stupid." Another pause. "Or you can take another step forward." She smiled again. "And we find out how the other story ends." Silence. Red Polo stared at her. The smile had not left her face. Her hands were still loose at her sides. She looked completely, utterly, terrifyingly calm, the kind of calm that only comes from someone who has been in genuine danger so many times that a parking lot confrontation barely registers as a Tuesday. Something moved through the group. A collective realization, arriving one man at a time, like dominoes falling in slow motion. This woman was not afraid. She had never been afraid. And the parking lot, the dark, empty parking lot they had chosen because they thought it gave them an advantage, she had assessed in the first 2 seconds and found 7 different ways to end this conversation before any of them could reach her. Red Polo's mouth opened, closed. The nervous one took a step back. Then another. Then they were all stepping back, the bravado collapsing like a poorly built structure in high wind, suddenly very sober, suddenly very aware that they had walked into something they fundamentally did not understand. "Good choice," Hazel said softly. She turned her back on them, a deliberate, precise, devastating show of absolute confidence, and walked to her grandfather's car. She heard their footsteps retreating quickly behind her. She never looked back. Walter was sitting in the passenger seat when she got in. He looked at her for a long moment, his granddaughter, who he had held as a baby, who he had taught to ride a bicycle, who had cried at her grandmother's funeral with her head on his shoulder. "You want to tell me what just happened," he said. "Nothing happened, Grandpa." "Hazel." She started the car, pulled smoothly out of the parking space, checked the mirror once, 4 men standing at the far end of the lot, watching the car leave, not moving. "I had a conversation," she said. Walter was quiet for a moment. "Were you ever in any danger?" She considered the question with genuine seriousness, because he deserved that. "No," she said, "not for a single second." He was quiet again for a long time as she drove through the quiet streets toward his house, past the bakery that closed at 6, and the old post office, and the church where her grandmother had sung in the choir for 30 years. "Your grandmother used to say," Walter said finally, his voice soft, "that you were going to be someone extraordinary. She said it when you were 4 years old." He paused. She was right. Hazel's throat tightened. She was pretty smart, Hazel managed. "She was the smartest person I ever knew," he agreed, "until you." They pulled into his driveway. The roses were visible even in the dark, great pale shapes against the garden fence, the ones that had finally bloomed after 2 difficult seasons. Hazel turned off the engine. She sat for a moment in the quiet dark and felt something settle in her chest, something that had been restless and watchful for 15 years, slowly, finally, learning to be still. "Same time next month?" she asked. Walter smiled. "I'll try the salmon this time." "You'll order the steak." He laughed that warm, rumbling laugh, got out of the car, walked to his front door, paused with his hand on the handle and looked back at her. "Thank you," he said, "for taking care of your old grandfather." Hazel looked at the roses, thought about the tulips, thought about the box of letters under her bed and the grandmother who had believed in her before she had given anyone a reason to. "You took care of me first," she said. She waited until he was inside, until the warm light in the hallway came on and his shadow moved past the window toward the kitchen where he would make his nightly chamomile tea. Then she drove home through the quiet night, alone and undefeated. The next morning, a local police report was filed. 4 men reporting a disturbance at a restaurant, When asked to describe the perpetrator, Red Polo had apparently struggled to explain exactly what had happened. She just looked at us, he had reportedly said. And a long pause. And we left. The officer had closed his notebook. Some stories, he decided, explained themselves. In her kitchen over her morning coffee, Hazel Marvel read the news, tended to her small herb garden on the windowsill, and sent her grandfather a text. "How are the roses?" His reply came in 30 seconds. "Magnificent like you, Rose." She smiled. Not the smile from the parking lot. The real one. Some people carry their strength loudly, in titles and trophies and stories told at dinner parties. And some people carry it quietly, in steady hands and calm eyes, and a smile that contains 15 years of things the world will never fully know. Hazel Marvel had fought in the dark so she could live in the light. And nobody was ever going to take that from her. The end.